Jim, what are we talking about today?
Today, Duncan, we are talking about the famous 3 questions.
The famous or infamous 3 questions. Let's do it. Okay, so a lot of Scrum teams think that they have to conduct their daily Scrum in the same way, which is talking about what did I do yesterday? What am I going to do today? And what blockers do I have? What's slowing me down? Now, originally, in the original version of the Scrum Guide, like a decade ago, these were the mandated way of conducting your daily Scrum. But along the way, they've changed a little bit because the original format was very similar to this. What was I working on yesterday? What am I working on today? What's slowing me down? At around 2013, they wanted to make it very clear that the focus should be on Scrum work, sprint work, and specifically the goal. So we're not really interested in, where you went for lunch or what meetings you went to. So what work did I do yesterday which helped towards the goal? And what am I going to do today around the goal? And what's slowing me down? There are a couple of other minor changes, but in 2017, they made these 3 questions optional. They made them an example of how you might want to conduct your daily Scrum. So it was no longer mandatory. And then, for some mysterious reason, in the most recent version of the Scrum Guide, they disappeared altogether. And yet, a lot of teams still think that they have to run the daily Scrum in this way. So, first question, why do we think they've removed the 3 questions from the Scrum Guide altogether?
I think a lot of people read the Scrum Guide and saw these questions listed and think, okay, well, that's how I run my daily Scrum. And what we found is that can limit creativity. That can limit teams having the conversations that they need to have. So I think one of the reasons they were removed is to get rid of that anchoring effect and promote that creativity.
And I think another reason is that even though these 3 questions were well-intentioned, they have possibly been used for evil. They do sound a little bit like micromanagement. What were you working on yesterday? What are you going to do today? What's slowing you down?
And absolutely. And those are the questions that became asked. What did you work on yesterday? Not what did you do yesterday to help the team achieve the sprint goal? The emphasis should be on the last bit of that sentence, to help the team achieve the sprint goal. This isn't about were you busy all day yesterday. This is about how are we as a team moving forward towards our goal.
So I think there were very valid reasons for removing the 3 questions. Do we think that the 3 questions are still a valid way of running a daily Scrum, especially for a new Scrum team?
Yeah, great question. Absolutely. I think for a new Scrum team, they're a great framework. They're a small framework within the larger Scrum framework that can help a team run their daily Scrum.
And I think for teams which just aren't used to working in this collaborative way, it can be a really good way of sort of breaking that ice and getting them used to having that stand up every day and just talking to one another. But you said earlier, limiting. Why? So how can we go beyond that?
Yeah, and when should we notice that we need to go beyond that? Because it's limiting, it can take the team down this zombie Scrum route, this mechanical Scrum route, where this is what they do every day. Now, are your team actively listening to what their fellow team members are saying? Or are they simply standing there waiting for their turn to talk?
Yeah, or maybe even just thinking about what they're going to have for lunch or dinner. So what are better ways? What are better ways that we could run that daily Scrum? What are alternatives?
Well, okay, rather than walking the people, rather than going around the team, we could walk the board. We could take each Post-it note on the board individually and talk about that. How is this one progressing? Where is our priority? How is this helping us achieve the goal? Or we could take the highest priority ticket on the sprint backlog and say, what is stopping us progressing this ticket to done today? And then the team can swarm on that, can focus on that, move single piece flow towards done each day. Or Alternatively, if the team are mature, a free-form discussion. The developers are professionals. We trust them to be able to manage their own work. They can have a free-form discussion about how work's going towards achieving the sprint goal.
Yeah, whatever works for the team. And a question that I like to ask with my teams at the beginning and at the end of the daily scrum is, do we still think we're going to accomplish the sprint goal? And quite often you'll get a different answer after you've had the daily scrum, certainly an effective daily scrum, from what you would have got at the start of an effective daily scrum.
What do you think might be some indicators that the 3-question structure isn't working for your scrum team?
So if they're not engaging with it, if they think it's a waste of time, if they're turning up, but they've got nothing to say, if they think about it as the Scrum Master's event, as opposed to their event, those would always be, for me, fairly obvious indicators that it's not being effective for them.
Is it a set of mini presentations? In which case, maybe this 3 questions format isn't working. Or is it a real collaborative discussion with a common purpose?
In addition, talking about that common purpose, is the plan changing during the sprint? And every one of the Scrum events should provoke change. And the daily Scrum should provoke a change in our plan for the sprint. So I'd want to see that plan was changing. And I'd want to see that we didn't get to the sprint review and suddenly realize that the plan was wrong all along.
That might be a brilliant indicator that the team either are brilliant at planning, which is possible, and nothing has changed, or it could be an indicator that the daily scrum isn't being used to update our plan, and perhaps a different format might be something worth trying.
Absolutely. So the 3 questions are for the daily scrum. They're an optional way. They're not the only way. And we just want to remember that the daily scrum is by the developers, for the developers, whatever format works for them.
And that's Scrum Chat.
Hold on, did I press record? Sure I did. Sure, it's fine.
You do that joke every time. The way I see it, Duncan, if a joke's worth telling, it's worth telling twice.
Every time.
Yeah.
That's going to be my... Okay, now I can't stop it.